What if the very thoughts you spend your entire life trying to suppress are the only keys to your actual liberation? Society conditions you to fear the dark corners of your own mind, prescribing endless distractions to keep you safely tethered to the superficial. We label the descent into the inner abyss as a breakdown, a dangerous deviation from productive normality. But this relentless avoidance is precisely what keeps you chained to mediocrity. To truly master your destiny, you must stop running from the chaos within and learn to navigate it. In 1913, a brilliant Swiss psychiatrist named Carl Jung stood at the edge of this exact precipice. He had just severed ties with his mentor, Sigmund Freud, the undisputed patriarch of psychoanalysis. This ideological rupture was not merely a professional disagreement, but a profound existential crisis. Jung found himself isolated, stripped of his academic safety net, and plagued by a relentless onslaught of apocalyptic visions. Rather than medicating these disturbances or fleeing back into the comforting arms of established dogma, he made a choice that defied every convention of his time. He chose to step willingly into the void. Jung initiated a radical self-experimentation, a deliberate and terrifying descent into his own psychological depths. He allowed the bizarre, terrifying imagery of his mind to wash over him without resistance, refusing to censor the madness that threatened to consume his waking hours. This period of intense internal struggle, lasting roughly from 1913 to 1917, was a solitary navigation through the uncharted waters of his own soul. It was a brutal test of psychological endurance, demanding a level of courage few possess. He would later term this harrowing epic his confrontation with the unconscious. This was not a passive experience of merely having dreams or intrusive thoughts. It was an active, fierce engagement with the raw, unfiltered material of the human psyche. The unconscious, in this framework, is the vast subterranean reservoir of instincts, forgotten memories, and primordial symbols that dictate our behavior from the shadows. To confront it is to look directly into the source code of your own being, stripping away the illusions of the rational ego. Consider your own evasions. How often do you numb a rising sense of dread with mindless consumption, or silence a profound inner calling because it threatens your comfortable routine? You experience cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that occurs when your deeply held beliefs clash with contradictory information or actions, yet you choose the path of least resistance. You patch the cracks in your reality rather than tearing down the faulty foundation. Jung's path demands the opposite. It requires you to invite the dissonance in, to sit across the table from your deepest fears, and to demand they speak their truth. To facilitate this dialogue, Jung developed a technique he called active imagination. This is a method of engaging with the unconscious mind by focusing on emotions, dreams, or spontaneous imagery, and allowing them to take on a life of their own in a waking state. It is a waking dream, a deliberate lowering of the rational mind's defenses to let the buried voices speak. Jung would sit in his study, summon the figures that haunted his visions, and converse with them as if they were real, autonomous entities sitting in the room with him. The figures that emerged were not mere phantoms, but potent archetypal forces. He argued with a wise old man named Philemon, wrestled with demonic entities, and traversed mythical landscapes that defied rational explanation. The internal struggle was agonizing. He often felt he was teetering on the brink of schizophrenia, holding on to his sanity by the thinnest of threads. Yet, he meticulously recorded every encounter, every terrifying vision, and every cryptic dialogue. These meticulous records birthed a monumental artifact known as the Red Book. Bound in red leather and filled with intricate, otherworldly calligraphy and vivid paintings, it is the raw, unedited chronicle of his descent. For decades, it remained locked away, a private testament to a journey too radical for public consumption. The Red Book is not a clinical text, but a mythic epic of a man fighting to survive his own mind, forging meaning out of the raw chaos of the psyche. The process of confronting these hidden aspects is closely tied to what is now known as shadow work. The shadow represents the repressed, denied, or ignored parts of our personality, the traits we deem unacceptable and shove into the dark. Shadow work is the conscious effort to uncover these hidden elements, acknowledging our capacity for cruelty, selfishness, and failure, and integrating them into our conscious identity. Jung realized that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. True sovereignty, therefore, is impossible without this integration. You cannot claim to master your destiny if half of your psychological forces are operating in open rebellion, hidden from your own view. Society defines success through external accumulation, wealth, status, titles, but these are fragile constructs easily swept away by the tides of fortune. The renegade noble understands that the only unassailable empire is the one built within. Mastery is not the eradication of your darkness, but the harnessing of its raw, untamed power. From the crucible of this profound disorientation, a new paradigm emerged. The insights forged in the fires of his private journals directly led to the foundation of analytical psychology. This was a revolutionary departure from Freud's purely personal, sexually driven model of the mind. Jung had discovered that the depths of the psyche were not merely a repository of repressed childhood traumas, but a gateway to something vastly older and more profound. He unearthed the concept of the collective unconscious. This is a universal, inherited layer of the human psyche, populated by archetypes, the primordial images and patterns of thought that are shared by all of humanity across time and cultures. It is the psychological DNA of the human species. Jung realized that his lonely, terrifying descent had not led him into isolated madness, but into the very bedrock of human experience. This realization shatters the illusion of your isolation. When you grapple with feelings of profound meaninglessness, when you are seized by sudden, inexplicable inspirations, or when you are haunted by recurring motifs in your life, you are not malfunctioning. You are participating in the ancient, universal drama of the human soul. The question is whether you will remain a passive victim of these forces, or if you will step up to the stage and consciously direct the play. Jung's survival of this ordeal required a discipline that echoes ancient philosophies. While he was charting new psychological territory, his method resonated deeply with Stoicism. Stoicism is the ancient Greek philosophy that teaches the development of self-control and fortitude as a means of overcoming destructive emotions, emphasizing that we cannot control external events, only our responses to them. Jung could not control the terrifying visions erupting from his unconscious, but he maintained absolute stoic dominion over his reaction to them. He did not flee. He did not panic. He observed, he recorded, and he engaged. He anchored himself in his daily life, maintaining his medical practice and his family duties, using his mundane responsibilities as a tether to reality while his mind explored the cosmos. This dual existence is the hallmark of the disciplined maverick. You do not abandon the world to explore the depths. You explore the depths to bring back fire to the world. Furthermore, his journey was profoundly existential. Existentialism is a philosophical movement emphasizing individual existence, freedom, and choice, asserting that humans define their own meaning in an absurd and inherently meaningless universe. Jung stripped away the inherited meanings of his culture and his former mentor, facing the void to forge his own truth. As the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard noted, anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. Jung stood at the edge of that dizzying cliff and chose to fly. You are faced with the same cliff. The modern world offers 1,000 different ways to anesthetize the anxiety of freedom. You can lose yourself in the endless scroll of digital validation, the pursuit of hollow corporate victories, or the comforting conformity of ideological tribes. But the price of this comfort is your authenticity. To forge a life of true consequence, you must be willing to endure the dizziness. You must be willing to delve into the spaces that scare you. Because he was willing to endure his own psychological crucifixion, Jung birthed a framework that has healed millions. Analytical psychology provided a map for those lost in the second half of life, offering a path to what he called individuation. This is the lifelong process of psychological integration, where the conscious and unconscious elements of the psyche are brought into harmony, creating a whole, undivided self. It is the ultimate act of self-creation. The legacy of that solitary struggle in a Swiss study continues to challenge the sterile, purely clinical approaches to human suffering. Jung proved that the soul cannot be reduced to mere chemical reactions or behavioral conditioning. He resurrected the mythic dimension of human existence, proving that our greatest neuroses often contain the seeds of our highest potential. The gold is always hidden in the dark. Look closely at the recurring conflicts in your own life. The relentless self-sabotage, the irrational fears, the sudden bursts of unwarranted anger. These are not mere glitches in your programming. They are the voices of your own unmapped territory demanding to be heard. They are the uninvited guests knocking at the door of your consciousness. Will you continue to barricade the door, or will you finally turn the handle? The path of the renegade noble is not for the faint of heart. It requires the surrender of your carefully curated persona, the mask you wear to appease the crowd. It demands that you stop outsourcing your authority to external institutions, gurus, or societal expectations. You must become the supreme arbiter of your own reality, a task that begins by confronting the tyrant that lives within your own mind. This is the essence of true resilience. It is not the ability to bounce back from external setbacks, but the capacity to withstand the terrifying revelation of your own depths. As Carl Jung himself observed, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. But you are not most people. The confrontation with the unconscious is the ultimate crucible of self-mastery. It is the radical, necessary descent that precedes any true ascent. Embrace the chaos, engage the shadows, and forge your own light in the absolute dark. The world does not need more well-adjusted conformists. It needs awakened individuals who have survived their own abyss and returned with the vision to change reality. The depths are waiting.